Matt, tell us how you got started in the business and what it is you do.
Well, I got started in the business working at Skip Barber. I was hired to work at Lime Rock Park, and we were selling hospitality, selling vendor space, and generally doing event management work, making sure people were in the right place at the right time, and just that everything went smoothly. They had 3 major events: NASCAR, Vintage, and the IMSA each year, and so that was our core focus. And so now, 10 years on, then I started Sunday Group Management, and our core focus is motorsports communications, marketing communications on behalf of motorsports firms, and so that's what gets us to the racetrack every week.
So do you keep an eye out on up-and-coming drivers and maybe approach them when you think they're ready?
Well, as I mentioned, I worked at Skip Barber, so I've had a long history of watching, young kids come up and become professional, go on and win the Indy 500. Frankly, it makes you feel old to say, oh, I remember when that kid was, running in go-karts. So yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I really relish about the sport, is watching talent prove itself and demonstrate capability and find opportunity to move up. So absolutely, that's something we always have an eye out for.
When you come across a driver with some great talent, there are always other drivers who are maybe just as talented, but it takes something special to get good sponsorship. You need someone with extra skills, that a driver does, I should say, that needs extra skills. What are those skills?
We were talking before about how the sport has changed over the years, and that's something that's absolutely true. Where before all that mattered was your ability to go quick, and if you were, someone who wasn't pleasant to be around, that didn't matter. As long as you went fast, you'd be fine. These days, a professional athlete, a professional driver, has to be just as capable outside of the car as they are in it. There's a lot of people who are able to drive a race car very fast, to drive a race car at its limit for hours on end. But someone who's able to then get out of that car and speak knowingly with sponsors, with the media, in a way that creates value for the people that are supporting him, that's a much harder thing to find, and that's who finds success.
And also, when the driver's day is done, he has to be the kind of disciplined person that goes back, trains in the gym, takes care of himself. I mean, you don't want a party boy that's going to go out and have too much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the sort of stereotypical race car driver generally is someone who is pretty boring. They go, they train, they're on their bikes, they run, whatever they're doing. They're very fastidious about that, and they're usually slow drivers when they get out on the real road, because obviously they get their fix on the track. So yeah, it takes a lot more than just a certain set of skills. It's a whole batch that really is what makes an actual top pro driver.
The days of James Hunt, the famous Formula One driver, and his escapades at the Seneca Lodge just down the hill are long over. But things have really changed in the sense of social media. It gets bewildering after a while. How do you keep up with that, and how do you choose the best social media?
Well, there's a lot of metrics tools that you can use to, you've got a kind of a toolbox of different, both ways to communicate outwardly, and then also to document what you've done and also demonstrate engagement with the audience, because that's something that social media is special in, that it creates the opportunity to engage directly with your public, with your audience, whatever that is. If it's race fans, or if it's Tide selling soap, or whatever that audience is, it creates a special opportunity, and it's very instant. And that's one of the things that's dangerous and also beneficial about social media. So there's a wide scope of tools that we use on behalf of our clients to create content, and then also to capture what happened.
Back in the days when people like Roger Penske and Richard Petty popularized motor racing and attracted major sponsors, most racers got a cold shoulder when they went looking for support. Nowadays, I don't think that's the case. Do they welcome you with open arms most of the times?
It's a very challenging market. It's a very challenging market because there's so much diversification of people's interests, and so it's a lot easier to split up the audience. The same way you've seen your cable lineup split up over the years. The same thing. There's a lot of options for the public to select from when it comes to what they're into, and motor racing is just one of those. So it's a big challenge to find that match. But it's also a special opportunity to create value for an organization that might not otherwise be able to do so in a meaningful way.
When you graduated from Hamilton College, so what kind of a degree did you have?
English literature.
Well, you're well prepared for this industry. What advice would you give to people who want to work their way into motorsports, not at the driver level, but to do something like this? What do you look for in people that might want to join your organization?
Well, I think it's for drivers and also just for people who want to work sort of on the other side of the pit wall. Being motivated, being very hardworking is the two main things. Being capable is something that you can work on. Having a natural sort of skill set is something you can build and develop. But really just being motivated and focused and open to new opportunity is the best way to develop what you're doing and move ahead.
But what about education? Is there any particular program? I mean, you were an English major, but are there other majors they may want to consider to give them that upper edge? Because, everybody likes to work hard, at least if the successful ones do, but you got to have that extra edge, and that might be in the form of education. Do you have any advice for young people?
Well, absolutely, education is the foundation for anything. But there's no specific path, and that's part of what makes this paddock so compelling and so interesting is even though there are a lot of similar job roles for all these teams, the people that fill those roles have had very different lives that get them to this point. So there's no one specific perfect education for this. I know a lot of engineers who become PR people and PR people who learn to become engineers. So there's no one specific path.
And CPAs who wind up at the other end of the microphone here. So that is great. Now, you have how many clients here this weekend?
This weekend we're working with just over 30 drivers and about 20 cars through the weekend.